Hey everybody, I am Matt Hill. I'm coming to you from the house today. It's my son's fourth birthday, so we're going to do a little bit of off the cuff. And normally I would be running out to see this guy that I want to introduce you to. Just an amazing leader in oil and gas who's done so much for this industry and will continue to do so. But this is the Oilfield tailgate that I want to support, the platform for all the parties and events, the calendar, and now doing podcasts so we can reach everybody and, hopefully do some energy education, literacy, promote all the companies that pitch into the Oilfield tailgate so we can enjoy these events coming up. And man, I just appreciate everybody so much. Don't forget at the end of this, please click on oilfieldtailgate.com and sign up to support everything that everybody's doing to come out and enjoy. Right now I'm going to introduce yourself. What's your name?
Oh, thank you, Matt, and I'm thrilled to be here and honored to be here. I'm Larry Richards. I'm the president of the 2023 Permian Basin International Oil Show that we do every other year in Odessa, Texas, October 17th through the 19th this year.
Yeah, you guys have had a special show for a long time. What anniversary of the show is this right now?
It started actually in the 1940s wow. and has been consistent every other year, other than a few years right around World War II that it got suspended because all the young men went off to fight in World War II. But since then, it's been one of the leading onshore oil and gas shows in the country, and then especially the last 10 years. It's become the onshore oil and gas trade show for our industry, the largest not just in the United States, but the largest in the world that focuses on the onshore technologies and innovations for the oil and gas market.
Yeah, I was fortunate to go quite a few years ago and just extremely impressed. And then 2 years ago, Stacy Jones, one of the people that helped you out to get this show growing and going, she asked me if me and another few fellow oil and gas podcast, people in our little niche would come out and do what do we call it? Or she called it the podcast party. And then she made the little cartoons of us. Thank you so much, Stacy, for that. But I'm just wowed by the creativity and the I think what it would be called the critical need to attend shows like this for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just, what do you foresee, that this will grow into in the future?
Well, I think we're already in that evolution. When I was starting my career 35 years ago, I spent a lot of time in the international arena. I spent a lot of time selling, big equipment projects in the North Sea and offshore Brazil and Gulf of Mexico, and that's where all the innovation was happening in our industry. For the last 15 years, so much of that innovation is happening onshore, and with these new completion techniques, where you're going into these tight shale formations that, some of them in the Permian, we're drilling fields that my dad, felt were largely worked out in the 1960s and played out, and now we're going in with these new technologies where we go, down and for a mile and then horizontally for 2 miles and put a football field worth of sand into that formation to make it a permeable formation where it wasn't before. We knew oil was in that, but there just wasn't any way to get to it. And now you've got, these huge wells that are coming in using all this new technology, but they're completely different than the wells that we've drilled and completed in the past. So you have to have all kinds of new technologies and innovations to be able to complete them based on trying to keep that sand in formation and the higher pressures and temperatures and everything that's pushing the envelope. And so much of that innovation's happened in the Permian Basin. And then you layer on top of it all the regulations and the focus on, doing it with zero emissions and zero flaring and reusing the produced water. And you've got just a huge opportunity for all these young companies to come in and try new things. And when they work, all of a sudden they're the industry standard 2 years later. And most of my career, it took a decade for something to finally make its way through and become an industry standard. And we're seeing in some of these products in 18 and 24 months in the Permian because they're addressing problems that are different than what we had a decade ago. but it's just amazing to see. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit that, you see in the Permian Basin, it's a perfect place to learn how to drill and complete and produce these wells over the long term, because, the companies are more willing to take some risks and try things, and safety is always paramount, and it's always going to be number one. But as long as you're doing it safely, companies are willing to try innovation and R&D and new technology and actually do it on an existing well, that they just spent $7 to $9 million to drill and complete, because they're cutting costs 25, 50% sometimes in some areas by trying new technologies. And so our show gets a chance for all these companies to highlight those technologies and innovations. And we're thrilled to be a part of it. We know we've got to go earn it every other year. I think part of our success is our board of directors. It's almost completely done by volunteers. We have two full-time people, Anthony Fry, our executive director, and Jess Smith, his assistant. Everyone else on that whole show is all volunteer. But we have over 150 industry leaders, men and women, that agree to be on that board and volunteer for the show. Almost every one of them is leading teams of people in the Permian, whether their own company or a division of a company or a department or a company. They know how tough it is to let people off for half a day or a day to go to a trade show. They know you can't do it, just for fun. There has to be a return on that investment, because people's time is really valuable. So we try to make sure when somebody, decides to come to our show, they're getting their money's worth and more, from, making it easy to park, to get to the show, to get in and out, and then make sure that our exhibitors, are there showing stuff that's proven in the field, but it's truly state of the art. And we think this year we're knocking the cover off the ball in that regard. We've got just some really cool tech that's going to be out there.
I noticed right away a couple of years ago, and maybe it's just I'm paying more attention these days because, like you said, there's more and more ways to go out and drill new wells or ensure that, legacy wells we extend the life of or go out and save them. I'm all for saving every possible well, plugging and abandoning, is the last resort. And so many engineers now, they may not want to go work in a cubicle and do new drills their whole career. They want to go out and scoop up, older wells that we have available for a lot of people, or, bigger companies that will be marginal. But nowadays, I know a couple dozen now that have said, hey, I'm kind of wanting to go out and venture on my own. All these wells are available for me to scoop up and, reevaluate and extend the life of. And they're happy with this, what is considered to them, a big well. So at your show, there is something for everyone, and there's something for everyone to showcase, no matter the budget. I mean, there is endless amounts of ways to sponsor that event or take part in. And you guys have really found, and this is to the admiration of all your volunteers. They're extremely passionate, even though they're volunteer, to be, on hand to help everybody that wants to be involved. And they have looked for, if you've got a company and you're an entrepreneur and you don't have a giant, pool of money to come to that event, that they will figure out a way for you to be there and participate and network and get your product and service out to all the people that, you might find a partner with.
No, you're exactly right. And it's a great point because, I exhibited at OTC and trade shows all over the country with my previous companies. And some were a good investment, some were not. But the Permian Basin Oil Show has always been one of the best, most cost-effective trade shows, and especially if you layer in the fact that it's in the most active basin in the United States. We have over 20,000 attendees walking through that door, and that so many of the oil and gas companies and the major service companies all make it a point to not just allow their people to go, but encourage their people to take a half a day or a day and coordinate it, in order to let them be exposed to all this different technology and innovation and things that can improve safety or efficiency on the job. And like you said, we've got people, with multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment out there. We got one of the largest displays of heavy horsepower in the world, on the 25 acres that we've got on showgrounds. But we also have all kinds of cool young entrepreneurs that have booths that came up with a better way to trick out some component in gas lift, or, for subsurface pumps, or all different types of technical solutions that, every one of them started a company because they're addressing a problem that existed out there, and they've been able to scale it. And, maybe they were only scaled to 2 people or 3 people, but they were able to showcase some products in a booth in Ector County Coliseum. And then you've got, just massive, technologies and that are much larger scale, all across the sub. So you've got, even if you're a small producer, we are a working man's oil show. And I say working man's a little bit circumspectly, because we have a whole lot of young women.
I don't know anybody in the industry that's not a working man or women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Work harder than everybody, even if it's unappreciated by, a big population of people that may not understand what we do, or even appreciate it or thankful for it. We're still going to go out and do our very best to create reliable energy. So. And
I was just saying the men part of it, because there's a whole lot of really hard working women in our industry now, as well, and have been for several decades, but especially you see it in the Permian when you got, so many young female engineers that are coming out of A&M and LSU and all these wonderful OU and different schools, Colorado School of Mines, that their first stint is in the Permian, and they're getting to a lot of authority to try some really cool things out there. But yeah, in regard to the working man show, we say that because what we try to focus on are things we want the field personnel to be able to come and get true value out of that show, and see things they can go put to work the next week, or purchasing people show up, they can actually purchase and put to work next week. And so our focus, while we love having senior executives at the show, and I was amazed, at the last show, I worked the booth some for my company, and I was amazed how many senior executives walked through, and picked up pieces of equipment and really tried to understand tech that was being shown to their teams. But you'll have a CEO walk through, and then right behind them, you got, 3 field techs that are the automation techs for a small independent. But the work those guys are doing, it's incredibly important to our industry. And they are phenomenally talented from a technical standpoint. Sometimes the toughest questions you get are from the guy that's covered, half his overalls are covered in oil, and he just came from the field, and he's got steel-toed boots and 2 guys behind him. And all of a sudden they're asking you questions that most electrical engineers, that just graduated couldn't answer, because of their depth of experience out in the field on what worked and what didn't work, and their specific field locations with issues they're running into with amperage and voltage. So it's a neat mix, where you've got all these different folks coming through. The one constant is that technology and innovation that you're going to see though walking around. And I think that's probably what makes us such a sustainable show year after year, versus so many of the other trade shows across the United States have struggled. We're sold out this year, every booth space. We have over 700 exhibitors.
You always find ways to find more space every year.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know
true.
how
we
you
are
do.
landlocked, but
yeah,
we do continue
somebody
to
call,
knock down old
you guys
buildings
have big
and take more
hearts.
space. But
you guys have big hearts, and you always crowbar somebody into a space somewhere.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, this year might be a little more of a challenge, just because we've got some folks that so much. There's been so much innovation in this water reclamation and recycling. So much innovation in using associated gas that was previously vented or flared, to capture it, get it in a pipeline, or if you have to burn it really efficiently. But one of the best.
Do not listen to him. Don't burn it. You put it on a Bitcoin mine, a hash hut.
You put it on a what?
Put it on a hash hut. I'm sure you got some Bitcoin miners out there showcasing their stuff, what they do. Trap gas is no more.
Yeah, well, that's what I was alluding to. Now we're going to have some really cool tech out there, from Warren Catt's new 2,500 horsepower gensets. We've always had gensets, but to be able to burn field gas, which isn't the same as pure pipeline quality, perfect gas.
Yeah, you got to put some scrubbers out there and do a few things to it, and then it's usable. Yeah,
sure. But to be able to use this stranded gas for these heavy horsepower applications, which has always been so hard because diesel is so energy dense as a fuel, and replacing that with natural gas, it's always been a challenge. You could do it, you just couldn't get full power load. Well, now you
Right.
got, these huge frac pumps. You got Warren Cat's going to have 2,500 power gen sets, and out on display at the show, we've got huge 2,500 horsepower new frac pumps that are driven by 80% natural gas, 20% diesel mix. Dragon's going to have their 4,000 horsepower frac pump out there that's got a 3,400 horsepower natural gas dual fuel that can use 80% associated fuel gas. And I think they've got a 4 megabyte turbine genset. Their newest one coming out. It's fully enclosed. It's like a 60-foot trailer. That's where I'm trying to think. I know how big their outdoor spaces are, but what they're going to give up to put some of this huge associated gas equipment in. We have the produced water guys doing the same thing. We have some really cool automation innovations that as companies are tying in all the automation and using it as a true asset to reduce cost and manage their decision-making processes more effectively across the whole field, and even tie in AI logic to do predictive and preventive maintenance. And it's really cool how much innovation's happening in our industry, even down to, you're talking on some of the smaller companies, the leveling technology. You look at an oil tank and you think, oh, okay, that's full of oil, and when you're in engineering class, that's what they tell you. What it's actually full of is mostly oil, and then it's got produced water that came out of the oil after it got dumped in the tank, and then you got sediment, i.e. sludge, in the bottom that filtered out, and then you've got oil, and then you've got gas on the top that you're dealing with, and there's so much of the new technology now from leveling. Slater Controls is an Odessa-based company that's come out and has some really cool new leveling tech that you don't need cherry pickers and all these men to put it in, and doesn't have any emission spots coming out, but you can accurately sit in your office and look at all your levels of all these different things across your tanks. It's just it's a neat time to be in the industry, and if you take the time to learn about what our industry's doing, it's something to be proud of. I mean, the U.S. talks about Silicon Valley, being leaders in the world in their industry. The United States oil services and manufacturing industry is the best at what it does in the world. There's not a peer even close. Nobody wants to buy equipment from Italy or Germany or UK or China or anywhere else when compared to the U.S. based companies that are driving this tech. And it's something that I don't think most Americans realize is an asset we have as a country.
Man, I love your enthusiasm. This is why he is in charge of this thing. He's a kid in a candy store. He's not just worried about running the Permian Basin Oil Show. I think you're just trying to get all those companies there. You're a lot like me. I want to learn everything about everything in our industry, because I am so proud to. I'm just astonished. I'm not surprised anymore about the things we can do. I'm just appreciative, and it's just all wow moments. And I just love what you're doing. I love everything about the Permian Basin Oil Show. I never see anybody complain about it. I just like the fact that you guys are open to just about any idea to keep making it bigger, better, stronger for everybody that participates. Anybody that's coming there to get help and partner or promote what they do. There's a place for everybody. And I agree with you. It's now the U.S. land premier conference of the world. Show up no matter where you're at or what you're doing. If you're interested at all in energy, whether you're part of our industry or not yet, that's something that you touched on for me, is that we need a lot more people in the future to join our ranks. So I hope people come to this show and just learn how they could be a part of it too.
Yeah, I think they'll see a lot of cool things. And to that point, because so much of the press we get as an industry, is one-sided and negative towards what we do. And to, my point to everyone I meet that works in our industry and everybody who's considering it, I'm incredibly proud of our industry. I'm incredibly proud of the impact we've had. And I'll give you 2 quick anecdotes. This year, 2023, according to the United Nations, about 8% of the world population lives in what they define as abject poverty, which is about $1.90 US a day or less.
Wow.
And it's terrible that 8 or 9% of the world lives in abject poverty. And I think we've made good strides to try to reduce that. But what's shocking is if you go back 200 years before that, in 1823, the percentage of humans that lived in abject poverty by that same metric adjusted for their time frame was 80%. 80% of every person on the planet lived in near starvation basis. And that was true for 100 years before that and 100 years before that. And every time they ever looked, the reason there's no pictures or any hand-me-downs from anyone in my family prior to, about 1870 is they didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and neither did 80% of any other family in the United States or anywhere else in the world. And what changed that in large part was the Drake well being drilled. And all of a sudden you've got this low cost transportable source of energy that's available to everybody. And we've been able to enjoy a lifestyle and material comforts and everything else that our great grandparents couldn't have dreamed of, and whether it's, our own climate control in our homes, where we got the air conditioner on right now, to our transportation, to all those areas, a huge part of that wouldn't have been possible without hydrocarbons. And then nobody talks about the other side of the equation, which is over 50% of our food is now produced with synthetic fertilizer from natural gas. You could not produce that synthetic fertilizer without the urea and ammonia from natural gas. When the natural gas pipelines in Russia, got disrupted, everybody was worried. You saw a lot of stuff in the news about the heating in Europe and the UK, which was a very real issue. But an equal concern was it going to cause huge areas of starvation across Africa and other places that are using these synthetic fertilizers that now can't be produced, in Ukraine and Russia because of the natural gas disruption. So 55% total human food production in 2023 is being produced from natural gas, and nobody even speaks to that or where that way if fossil fuels did go away tomorrow. And don't get me wrong, I'm a conservationist. I'm an outdoorsman.
We're the best stewards of our own land. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have got to be stewards of this natural resource, this God-given natural resource. I think we need to focus, to your point earlier, on these lower wells. We need to focus every hydrocarbon molecule that's produced. We need to figure out how to capture it and produce it. And if we can't, then we need to hang on, keep it where it is until we can produce it effectively for future generations. Because I think it's that unique. But to have the majority of all the dialogue be, that the oil and gas industry are the bad guys in the last 100 years is just a bit mind-boggling to me. Especially when the other side of the story is just never told.
It's just education. We were talking about the other day when the digital podcasters were in town and gave us, a good talk. Is we're not going to change hearts and minds on, someone that doesn't want to listen unless we come, from a good place in our hearts, that, God gives us the ability to talk to anybody. So let's do that. Let's have a conversation. But it should be, a good conversation. It should be asking them questions about what they think, what they believe, giving them opportunities to learn from us with humility and humor. So there's a lot we can do to educate the other side.
Yeah, I agree. Listening, you're right. Listening is a big part of that as well. So it's got to be a two-way conversation.
Well, I love listening to you. I want to keep doing it, but I know you're busy because you're keeping this show going. But this is always a human factor for me too. So I want to know just a little bit more about you before I let you get back to life. Where did you grow up?
Oh, interesting. I grew up right north of New Orleans in a little town called Mandeville, and was there. Had a really wonderful childhood there. Some of still my best memories. And then went to high school right north of Houston in Kingwood. My wife and I both went to Texas A&M. We met there, and we've been married. Sandra and I've been married 34 years now, and have 2 boys in their 20s that I'm just immensely proud of. And we Sandra followed me. I think we moved 12 times the first 9 years we were married. So God bless her.
You must be a good catch. I mean, she must have out. I'd probably ask her when I saw her, like, did did you really just outkick your coverage to chase him that much? Do you bow just a little bit every time you see him?
Yeah, well, I can promise you, I outkicked my coverage getting hurt.
We all do.
That's the understatement of the year. But I've just been so blessed that she stood by me through all the different deals. And then I got my start when I was still in college. Worked for Sun Oil Company a couple summers in their engineer training program, but ran with roustabout crews, one in a heavy oil field in East Texas, and then one with a real high pressure gas field in South Texas. And man, I got a tremendous amount of respect for those guys. We had fun. You'll never laugh so much on a job as in that game truck, but we worked our ass off. I mean,
it sometimes feels like war out there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I always love that. It's like we're at war, but if we keep good spirits about us, it turns out to be your best memories, no matter how much of a body and headache it might have been at the time.
Yeah, no doubt. But then in midway in '86, I tell people, I plan to be a petroleum engineer like my dad, but the downturn in 1986 and, Texas A&M convinced me after 2 long years that I wasn't a petroleum engineer. But I was doing pretty good. But in '86, every petty that was graduating was going to work as a bartender because they're just, the industry had just stopped. And I switched my major.
All that talent just fled us, sad.
Yeah, and these cycles are so detrimental to our industry. But I switched my major to business, and Sandra graciously waited an extra year for me to get out of school. And then my first real job in the oil field was for a company called Continental Emsco, and we second largest drilling rig manufacturer in the U.S. We had all kinds of equipment. We built production equipment, every kind of production equipment you can build, and did well servicing rigs, a couple of different things at a big 500,000 square foot plant down there in South Houston, and learned my ropes there. Was over their parts and service for a number of years, but it let me understand, when you got a rig down, somewhere in the middle of Venezuela, it's pretty serious to figure out how to get it solved. Too sweet. So it was great experience. I just had some wonderful mentors there. I was there about a decade. And then when they were bought out by their largest competitor, I made a move to Key Energy, and was there over everything equipment side. We had Key at that point was the largest well servicing company. Had about 1,500 well servicing rigs and about 1,500 vacuum trucks and a whole lot of frac tanks and all that good stuff. And they created a position company. Yeah, it was, and I haven't been involved with it in years, but at that point it was doing a lot of acquisitions. They had their largest acquisitions, and it was just a great team of people. But 3 years into that, I got a chance to run my own company, which is what I always wanted to do, and left them to go join a little company out in West Texas called Highbond Engineering. It was a company that I actually set up as a subcontract manufacturer for Continental Emsco on their vapor recovery units years before. And their owner had asked me to come out and run it and earn equity each year as I ran it. So I did that, and we had a really good run. We grew it pretty dramatically, over 30% a year for the 12 years I was there, and had 2 different exits during that point. The original owner exited out first, and then I grew it with a private equity firm for another stint, and exited with them about the right time in 2014, and worked out really well for everybody. And then got a chance to back a young entrepreneur in Odessa. I was going to do it one more time. I said, I want to build it.
I got to do it one more time.
Yeah. Let's do it. But I told everybody up front, I said, I'm going to do this one more time, and then I'm done. I'm really done. I'm going to, retire. And we did.
And here you are running the Permian Basin Oil Show.
Well, Tony does all the heavy lifting. I get to do the easy part, but it's back to young entrepreneur that was actually Entrepreneur of the Year there in Odessa by the Small Business Association. But a really neat guy that started this business from scratch. And me and a team of folks that were good friends that had worked together, and a private equity backer, we in a little less than 5 years grew it to a little north of 50 million in revenue, and became, had some customers stand behind us that just really were gracious in giving us a shot as a new young company. And we put a whole lot of automated valves and flow measurement and instrumentation and air instrument packages and all kinds of cool stuff out across the Permian. And we had an opportunity to sell that business, and it merged with a larger company. But it was just a great deal for my employees and my team, and it allowed me and kind of one of the gentlemen that had been a partner of mine for years, that he would been wanting to retire before me. So it allowed us to do that, and the team's kicking ass and taking names and continuing to grow the business. So win-win all the way around.
It is. It's a win-win that you've inspired so many people and led them very well. And it just goes to show you why you're doing what you do. God puts you in the right place, buddy.
I hope so. I tell you what, I think having God at the center of it all is the secret. Well, it's not a secret. It's I gave my life over to Christ a long time ago, and always tried in all the business decisions to honor God in everything we did. And every day isn't a lot of fun. You got your good days and your bad days, but that's a decision I've never looked back on.
Yeah, there's no end to the gifts we're given each day, and I'm constantly reminding people, hey, my only job here on earth, and the only reason he's going to ever keep me around is so I could be a funnel for all the gifts he's given me to try to do as much as I can to make sure it just goes right through me to somebody else. So yeah. That's why I do this. I want to highlight good people and bring them together, introduce people. More than ever, we're going to really rely on each other now and in the future to make partnerships, and that's how we're going to get through every up and down. And that's how we've always done it, because it's the people. It's always the people. The technology is amazing, the work, the product, but it's always the people that will keep us moving ahead. Yeah,
very true.
And that's why I want 30,000 people this year to come out to the Permian Basin Oil Show, maybe 50. I don't know how many people we can get to start getting tickets to fly in. I have to put up some temporary housing there in Midland, Odessa. Not that there's not quite a bit of that already, but maybe they'll get a taste of how amazing it is down there. Everybody always is scratching their heads when I tell them how much I love going down there. I've lived down there, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "You just got to go. You got to experience it for yourself. It's a good place to be, and that shows where it belongs."
Yeah, well, thank you. And attendance is free. Any adult in the industry attends for free. Parking's for free. There's no parking at the Coliseum. We got another big parking spot right down the road, and if it's not there, we got Ratcliffe Stadium there in Odessa that we have buses running every 20 minutes, big air-conditioned charter buses that for however many overflow. So if 30,000 want to show up, we got them covered on parking and getting them in the show.
I totally am excited. It's coming up quick. What's the dates again?
October 17th through the 19th.
And for all those watching still, Permian Basin Oil Show website's what?
It's PBIOilshow.org. And we've got some videos on there this year.
PBIOilshow.org.
Yep, PBIOilshow.org. And we've got videos on there for pre-registration, for how to get your food tickets, for any question you've got. We've got a video. You can just click on a quick 2-minute video that'll kind of walk you through and answer all your questions on the front end.
Well, my company, Night Fire, we're extremely excited to come down there, and we'll have a big exhibit. I don't think that anyone there is going to let us start a big fire and put one out, but we'll be ready just in case. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I hear you. I hope we don't utilize those services. We'll watch a video.
We'll see. I'm there, so there's no telling what could happen. And I'm also going to be doing my podcast with a few others. We'll see. But if you're there, please look me up. I'd love to do everything I can to promote you along with the show, so that we keep growing it. And I just thank you so much for doing this with me today. Let me be part of this even a little bit. I'm very appreciative of what you do. God bless you, buddy.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to meeting you in person in October. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And guys, this is what we do. We figured out a way to bring everybody together and find new ways to help each other. So make sure you sign up to come down there and let them know you're coming. Share everything you can. Permian Basin Oil shows on every platform, from the web to Facebook to LinkedIn to Twitter, on and on and on. So we can reach not only each other to make sure we're there, take time off from your own companies to come down, but bring people outside of the industry and expose them to our mission to bring reliable, affordable, abundant energy to the globe for human flourishing. We'll see you next time. Take care. God bless you.